Okay, so welcome to this presentation where I will show you why agile business models and agile development really needs to also have corresponding agile security methods in place. And most probably all of you know what agile development means, developing services in an agile way. So actually I'm not used to speak to people from a stage, so I feel a bit exposed and vulnerable, maybe just like you do when you present your or expose your digital services to the outside world. And the fact that you are here now means most probably that agile development is nothing new to you. I guess most of you already have seen an image like that one. That explains that agile development doesn't mean to make the car that maybe the customer has in mind, but to take the customer's requirement to get faster from A to B, and therefore starting with a very low functionality that is maybe not so satisfying for many people, but at least for some people. And you can hit the market very early and have the opportunity to get market feedback right from the beginning, supporting you in developing the application in the digital sense, the digital services according to the customer's needs, and improve them in the way that you attract more and more customers. So more the lower part than the upper part. And that means you have faster time to market, you have more earnings with that, and so on. That's all the reasons business guys tell why you should do agile development. But however, this also follows a good enough approach. And now the question is, do today's security measures really cope with this kind of development? The question is, what about security in that sense? So what we see, to answer this question, what we see after validating more than 1,000 vulnerability reports during the last year is an increasing number of misconfigurations. So that starts with putting the tick on the wrong place in a SaaS service, or configuring the development pipelines wrongly, such that customer data in the end gets exposed. So that's the one thing. What we also see is increasing is dependency related problems. So today, if you develop and you want to develop fast, you use a framework. And by doing so, this framework has lots of dependencies, lots of code that is being injected from outside sources, and that can bring up vulnerabilities too. So all these supply chain attacks, I will give you a practical example later on during this speech. And also insecure implementations, that's classic, be it the junior developer not knowing how important it is to do input validation, or be it the senior developer who has a misconception about how federation protocols actually work, and configuring the third-party IDP by implementing it the wrong way around, and leaving the system open to all kinds of attacks. Another point that we often see is that data is leaked by providing the code outside in a repository somewhere where API keys, for example, are exposed, and so on. And overall, we see a loss of control. So using, over the last couple of years, many systems have been developed, many technologies, the cloud technology stack, CI/CD, direct deployment tools, and so on, and frameworks that are being used. And all this together leads to a situation where you have lots of dependencies that are way out of control of the project team that actually is implementing a certain service or a certain application. So in the end, an application is built on a framework with dependencies. The development team uses predefined modules from NPN, for example, with code that is not under the control of the organization itself. And even these libraries have other dependencies to other libraries and so on. So it's sheer impossible to get a complete overview of what's going on. So, and that's not only our impression. If we take a look at the Allianz Business Risk Barometer, we see that cyber incidents are rated as the top business risk in 2022. So it's not any longer just a problem of the IT department, it's a problem of the business itself. And that turned from years ago, started in the field of cybersecurity more than 20 years ago. Then cybersecurity was related to mostly computer security and also the protocols and so on that are involved. But however, not many business critical services were exposed to the outside. So in most cases, IT department, the IT security personnel was a part of the IT department somewhere in the basement, and the whole purpose was to stop business from getting ideas to open up business critical information to the outside. That completely turned. Information security professionals today are the business enablers #1. And this shows exactly that. But let's go back to the question that I asked. Are security measures that are in place today enough for this development, for agile development, for going on with features and implement features as soon as possible? So it would be nice to have a system or a methodology to protect from every possible vulnerability. But this is not possible. We know that no information system will ever be 100% free of any risk. But we have to have, again, also a good enough approach. But for that, you need a proper view of the risks. You need to identify all the possible security risks, all the vulnerabilities. You have to be aware of them, just that you can make a conscious decision what vulnerability or what risk you want to address and what you still want to accept in the end. Yes, and for that you have several measures, several security measures that are in place. But for agile development and agile methodologies, you need to turn security measures from static protection and predefined release cycles with selective security testing to continuous security testing to get a real-time view on the vulnerabilities and the risk level that you are exposed to. And as well, to mix it up all together in a security mesh, get all the information you need to make proper decisions on how to further develop security. So with continuous security testing, I don't mean to get rid of penetration testings, for example. So penetration testings are one very important thing to secure systems. A penetration test, I guess every one of you knows what a penetration test is. It's not only a black box testing like bug bounty, for example, is. It's a white box testing, doing code analysis, but not only doing code analysis, reviewing the architecture, reviewing the processes all around, and to get a real overview of the current state of the situation. But that's a snapshot. The penetration test, that was certainly enough if you had half-yearly or yearly release cycles where you went out with new features. But as I said before, the idea is to first release the skateboard and then extend it further on, and new features and more features. And you don't want to wait a half a year with a new feature to hit the market. You want to hit the market as soon as the feature is ready. And that's a problem with the environment your code is running in. So if you do a pen test and half a year later, most probably there will be a change of code. There will be a change of code of your own if you release a new feature, but not only that, even if you say, I don't want to change the code for a half a year, I don't have new features and so on, your code is built on frameworks that have dependencies, and these dependencies are outdated somewhere. Also, they have bugs in it and introduce vulnerabilities to your project. and that means you don't want to wait a half a year to fix the code that your application is relying on. So after all, you have a constantly changing environment, and that means you need continuous security testing. So one dimension is the selective security testing, which you do in the dev, and the other is the continuous security testing. And I want to show you three parts of that. One is the automated security testing, building automatic tools right into the development and the deployment processes. The other one is vulnerability scanning. And vulnerability scanning helps you a lot to get the most common flaws detected at an early stage. And the other one is bug bounty. And how these relate, I want to show you with this slide. So for me, automated security testing tools, vulnerability, that's all on a predefined basis. So someone figured out that this is a problem, and now it's automatable in kind of a signature, and this is being searched in the applications for whether this applies for the current application as well. So that's kind of an inside-the-box security testing, or out of the box, if you want to tell it so, just out of the box. But it's not outside of the box. So outside of the box means creativity. And creativity you get only if you have people involved. People with the same skills as the people you want to protect your application from. And that's given with bug bounty. There you have the option to have several people with several different backgrounds and angles looking at your application and trying to be creative. So as the inventor of the internet used to say, a hacker is someone creative that does wonderful things. And clearly it's a question on which side you stand. If a breach has happened, you might not agree on that. But if the breach didn't happen yet, it can help you to advance security in your applications at an early stage before an attacker really gets used to this breach. I want to show you two examples that we came across during last year. And I found them kind of interesting, therefore I want to show you these examples. So one example is data leakage based on blind cross-site scripting. And that's a pretty interesting thing because at several stages something went wrong. But however, in blind XSS, the attacker has the option to inject JavaScript code, for example, in a contact form. And this JavaScript code is then stored at the customer service, somewhere in a database. Now, the customer service itself was not vulnerable to cross-site scripting because they never showed that back to the user. So it was not a reflective cross-site scripting, but they used this information to use a third-party service in the internet to do some things. So they sent it along to an API, and within this API, it was stored in the transaction history. And this third-party provider provided to our customer an admin application. And in this admin application, this was vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So once a month, our customer's administrator used this admin application of the third-party provider, and guess what? Boom, the script got executed and sent all the customer P2 data to, in this case, to our security researcher who found out. So, and after starting with the private bug bounty program, it took 4 weeks for this report to pop up, and it costed in the end 2,000 Swiss francs of bounty payout. Guess what that would have costed if not one of our researchers would have found that, but anyone. Yes, okay, that's one example. Another interesting example that also shows what actually supply chain attacks means in digital services is depicted here. So if an attacker gets somehow to inject his code into a library that is being used by many other services, then this is a supply chain attack. And in that case, we had a customer with an application using a standard framework, Angular, React, you name it. And to develop fancy dashboards and so on, they used third-party code on NPM. So NPM is kind of a database that provides around 1 million different application code snippets that can be reused in applications. So it's quite popular. And in that case, the library that was referenced, the dependency was referenced on, didn't exist any longer. But it was still referenced in the code, and not only in this application, as it turned out, but in all other applications as well. They reused the code. And the friendly hacker that worked for us, he had now the opportunity to register this dependency namespace and inject his own code into it. And that turned, after redeployment, it turned to pop up in the code of the customer's application and led to possibly full control of the attacker over the session, over the application itself. So this is the second interesting thing I wanted to show you. So, and that came up a week after we started with the public bug bounty program, and it costed the company 3,000 Swiss francs in bug bounty payout. And also here, guess what that would have costed if that went public. So it's a very interesting thing. So to finish this up, I want to give you some tips from our experience over the last year if you want to start with the bug bounty program, completely independently who the provider is. So start fast, because every day you don't do that, it might be a missed opportunity to find a flaw that could be very harmful to you. So start fast, but start with the small scope that you're comfortable in. So small scope means maybe one application, 2 applications, an API endpoint or whatever, and with just a closed group of friendly hackers that you want to participate in that program. And when they found something, they will report it, and you also have to come up with, does your organization fit for a bug bounty program? Maybe you have to change your organization as well, because you have to know if there are reports that are coming in, you have to provide the capacity to fix these bugs. So it's useless if you have a lot of information, a lot of reports, but in the end you cannot change all these things that are running in. So getting familiar with, getting comfortable with, and learn about the service and your service provider, and gain trust in your service provider. And then extend it. Extend the scope, putting in more application endpoints, maybe the mobile applications as well, maybe in relation with your partner services, the APIs to your partner service, and so on. So extend the scope, but also extend the number of friendly hackers that are looking at these application endpoints. And then you extend it and extend it further on until you have an open public bug bounty program where you have where everyone who is interested in is allowed, according to the rules that you define for your bug bounty program, to test your applications and report possible flaws. Yes, that's what I wanted to show you. So thank you very much.